Hello and welcome. Today we are at a remote location in Arunachal Pradesh, and with me is a special guest, Eastern Army Commander Lieutenant General Manoj Pandey, who looks after the entire border with China and Myanmar in the Eastern Command area, which extends from Sikkim right down to Arunachal Pradesh and, of course, Nagaland and Mizoram and other states of the Northeast. This is a special occasion because this interview is being conducted in a remote forward location in Arunachal Pradesh. And this is the first time after the recent induction of more troops, building of more infrastructure, that the Eastern Army Commander is speaking on camera with any media house there. General Pandey, welcome to this
Thank you,
interview.
Nitin. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure to invite you on this program because, as I said, this is the first time we are here in this remote location. So, first up, let me ask you straight away, what is the situation along the line of actual control in this sector?
So, Nitin, you are aware that India and China share a very large border, and significant portion of it, about 1346 kilometers, is in the Eastern Command. In Eastern Command, there are a number of interaction points where our patrols, the Chinese patrols, meet on a regular basis. Sometimes it's a chance encounter. But overall, I must say the situation is calm and under control, and with no major incidents of transgression or violence that have taken place in the last year and a half. While all this is happening, both sides are developing our infrastructure on close to the LAC. And at times that does raise certain issues, but we have a very robust, resolution mechanism at each level. So if there are any such issues, we sit down, talk, sit across the table, and are able to resolve it. You would have recently known we earlier had three sort of hotlines in the Eastern Theatre, one in Sikkim and two in Arunachal. Very recently, last month, we have the fourth one in North Sikkim, and that has actually helped. Also, I must mention here of the role of our junior commanders or tactical commanders who actually interact and meet the PLA at the LAC.
Right.
So, our guidance to them has been not to be aggressive, not to let any situation escalate, develop good mutual understanding between at their level so that most of these issues, if at all there are any, get resolved and they do not sort of precipitate or further exacerbate. So, to sum it, I would say, yes, the situation is calm, well under control, and there are no major issues that we have.
Like you said, it's calm right now, but intentions can always change when the capability is there on the Chinese
Absolutely.
side. So, on that front, what are we doing to counter the Chinese intentions if, suppose, what happened in Ladakh can get repeated in this sector theoretically?
Yes.
So, in that respect, what are the capabilities that you are building? What is the new induction of troops and maybe going forward? What are those plans that are happening?
So the first and foremost thing would be to keep a close watch and monitor any buildup of troops or movement of forces across the LAC, both in the depth areas as well as close to the LAC.
Right.
And for that, we have integrated and making use of all the surveillance resources or means that are available at our disposal, right from the strategic level, let's say the satellites, up to the level of our forward troops which are banked there on the LAC.
Right.
So this is an ongoing activity, and we are confident that any movement, any additional troop movement, induction, build-up, we shall be able to pick up. So that is one part.
Right.
We also have strengthened our surveillance mechanisms on the LAC. In terms of our adequacy of number of forces, I must say we have adequate forces, and that includes the combat elements, the combat support, and the logistic elements. We have contingency plans for various situations that may arise, which we have practiced, rehearsed. Besides this, the infrastructure has been a major focus area for us, and that is what we have given impetus because in certain sectors where our forward connectivity is not as good, That is where we are trying to, reach as close to the LAC as possible. Also, we are developing aviation infrastructure, forward aviation bases, ammunition storage facilities, logistic storage facilities, and the likes. So the infrastructure, including improving habitat for our troops, has been one of our focus area.
Indeed, I can vouch for it because having gone around, thanks to your support, that in the last 7-8 days, one could see the fast developing infrastructure in terms of everything that you mentioned. Apart from that, the good synergy between Indian Air Force and the Indian Army in these forward areas was something that was an eye-opener for me.
Absolutely. So since you asked about the synergy with the Air Force,
Right.
I think that is extremely crucial. I mean, I'm convinced that any future war, unless we work together, we achieve the synergy, you will not get the desired outcomes. In the context of Eastern Command, I think it is more important because the kind of spread or the vast expanse of areas that we have, the nature of topography, we have independent, isolated valleys.
Right.
So this becomes all the more important. So I must flag to you 3-4 areas where
Sure.
we are working very closely. One is the surveillance.
Right.
You have seen the areas widely spread. There have been certain surveillance gaps. So we have sat down together and sort of worked out a deployment of our radars so that there are no gaps. It's a continuous surveillance.
That's wonderful.
Air defense. Again, likewise, Air Force has air defense systems. We have our air defense. So that again, we have integrated it together to get the best outcomes. Airspace management is another thing. You mentioned about Chinooks. Now that has given us the capability to be able to induct a sizable number of troops in areas where we lack surface connectivity. So we have worked out with the Air Force and made out plans for various contingencies.
We also saw the underslung operations of the ultralight howitzers,
Yes.
which I think is a game changer in many
So
ways.
as part of our capability development, we have the ultralight howitzers which can be moved from one valley to the other. So that has been a big value addition to our warfighting capability.
Right.
And we have practiced with the Air Force to be able to shift the guns along with the ammunition from one sector to the other.
Exactly.
Also joint infrastructure in forward areas, so common helipads, common refueling facilities, because that is what will then achieve optimization. With the Air Force, we have also sat down and evolved joint operational procedures. We have a joint operational doctrine, both for operation as well as the training. But besides all this, I think our interaction with the Air Force goes beyond just the operational domain, and we are trying to, achieve as much
It's very encouraging.
better outcomes as we can.
No, it's very encouraging.
Absolutely.
But let me move to the larger picture. We recently saw in the media that the 17th Mountain Strike Corps has been now permanently allotted to Eastern Command. How would that bring in the necessary firepower?
So you would recall 17 Corps raising began in 2014, and I must mention here that the Corps is fully operationalized.
Right.
I must also add here, and that has brought about a very significant enhancement to the operational capability of Eastern Command, both in terms of the deterrence value as well as the offensive capability.
Sure.
All its units, be it the combat units, combat support, or the logistic units, are fully equipped, and there are no equipment voids. Additional equipment also has been inducted, such as the ULHS,
Right.
which they have got, and long-range vectors. Their operational philosophy, their concept of employment has more or less now got stabilized. They're routinely doing integrated training with our forces, which are already deployed on the LAC. More recently, as part of our effort to enhance their capability, we are restructuring them into integrated battle groups, which you would have heard about.
Yes.
Now, that is something to do with having tailor-made structures wherein that will give us better flexibility in their application of the strike corps in different sectors, as well as enhance their potential. So this is something which is currently underway.
That is wonderful to know because it's just in 7 years you managed to do that.
Yes. Also, the locations for these units, we have reworked it out so that in terms of early mobilization and early time advantage, that is achieved. So overall, I feel the 17 Corps, its operationalization is complete. its employment, we are very clear, and there are various options on how we can employ it should the need arise.
I'm sure that note has been taken by those who need to take that note
Yes.
everywhere. But in that context, the Siliguri corridor, which
Yes.
connects rest of India to the northeast,
Yes.
is in a way a very vulnerable corridor.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that? What are your plans to?
So that's a
make
very
sure-
good observation that you make. As you would know, Siliguri corridors are a narrow stretch of land, approximately 170 by 60 kilometers, which shares common land borders with Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Nepal. And most of our critical assets, or shall we say the lines of communication as far as the northeast goes, pass through it, be it the OFC, be it the pipeline, the national highways, the railways, and the likes. So this is extremely important. Given the peculiar geographical location of the area and the Chumbi Valley in
That's
the
right.
Tibet Autonomous Region,
Correct.
that tells you of its strategic significance. So Siliguri corridor is extremely critical to us. Now, what do we do for its security? Of course, we have adopted a sort of whole of nation approach wherein all agencies, be it the security agencies, be it the state governments in that area, we are working together. And we have plans for its security during normal times, during the conflict, and in case of a war, should it come to that.
Right.
Very recently, we have set up a joint coordination center, which the army has taken the lead
I see.
to again coordinate activities of all agencies.
Okay.
I must also add, at the national level, there are other alternate means being looked at as to how do you then mitigate the vulnerability.
There are plans in place for
Absolutely.
that. Right.
Yes.
So I'm glad you said that, because that is something that people have worried, national security planners have constantly worried about. But I'm glad you have those plans to mitigate the vulnerability.
Yes.
But looking at the larger borders, again Myanmar, for instance. Let me
Yes.
come to the insurgency part in the northeast first, and then look at Myanmar.
Yeah.
The insurgencies in the northeast have been ongoing for a long time, in fact, for decades. But of late, I think there seems to be some kind of a thaw or a ebb that has come in there. What is the current assessment that you have?
Yeah, so your observation is, I think, spot on. There has been a paradigm shift in terms of the security situation, let us say what it was about 5 to 10 years back from what presently today. So the violence levels have drastically come down, as you would have noticed
Right.
In what is available in the open source media.
Yes.
I would say majority of the insurgent groups have sort of got marginalized. They do not any longer have any ideological moorings. Most of the activities I would mention are confined to extortion, kidnappings, and that is what they are depending on for their survival. In all this, the army has had a major role to bring in peace and normalcy.
Sure.
And we adopted a three-pronged approach. First was to have a very robust CICT grid. Secondly, to work together with other stakeholders and state governments. And third, to conduct people-friendly operation. I think all these three has brought a situation or to such a position that now the state governments and the central governments are now able to better implement their development projects because of the peace that is prevailing. The government, I must mention, has also taken a lead and successfully come to an understanding or a peace accord or the suspension of operations with many of these groups. Very recently, the groups in the Karbi Anglong, sometime back, the insurgent groups in the Bodoland, and likewise the Bru Accord. I think all this is the manifestation of the government's
Right.
overall
Intention
approach.
here.
Yes. Among the various states, Mizoram, Tripura and Meghalaya is peaceful.
Right.
As far as Assam goes, I would say it's only the 4 upper Assam districts of Assam where there are issues. But you would recall the ULFA I had declared a 3-month unilateral ceasefire, which they extended it.
Right.
So I'm sure in the near future they will come on board. As far as Nagaland is concerned, the Naga Peace Accord has been in the news. There again, with the recent coming on board of one of the groups, the Nikisumi group,
Right.
that has been a big, I would say, forward step. there is a lot of political activities within Nagaland. So I'm confident that in due course,
Even
this
that will get
fructify.
resolved.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as Manipur is concerned, we have some valley-based insurgent groups which are active, but the violence levels or level of activity is nowhere compared to what it was earlier.
Right.
And as far as Arunachal goes, the Tirap, Changlang, Longding districts is a little cause of concern, but there is more of again extortion, kidnapping, and activities in the law and order domain.
Exactly. At the
So-
lower scale, basically, at the
Absolutely.
lower spectrum.
So overall, I would say things are looking good, and things have,
Right.
I would say, returned to normalcy to a large extent.
No, Jackson. Indeed, I would agree with that, having watched the Northeast for a long time. But looking at the situation in Myanmar after the coup,
Yes.
what has been the blowback, if at all? There's some blowback in Mizoram we know
Yes.
of. But in terms of security, how do you assess that situation?
Right. So Myanmar is an important neighbor for us, and we've had very friendly relations with that country in the past. As far as Tatmadaw or the Myanmar army is concerned, at the functional level, the Indian army has had excellent relations. So the current internal situation in Myanmar is worrisome, and we wish them well. I'm sure they will find a solution to it.
Right.
You mentioned about the Indo-Myanmar border.
That's right.
But what is of concern is some activities that are taking place close to the Indo-Myanmar border, because that is what is causing anxiety and fear amongst the locals there.
Right.
And we've had in the recent past, last week, a sudden increase in the number of refugees or people who are coming across from Myanmar to our own side.
Right.
I must make a mention here of the nature of the Indo-Myanmar border. You are aware it is unfenced. It is porous to the extent that you have a free movement regime,
Exactly.
wherein from people from both sides can travel up to 16 kilometers and stay there for a stipulated period
Right.
with head loads.
Correct.
So that poses its own complications and challenges to it.
Sure. Sure.
But we also have some Indian insurgent groups who have camps on the other side. There are also camps of certain ethnic armed groups like the Chin National Army and likewise. So this is something which we are keeping again a very close watch on. We have intensified our surveillance and patrolling so that any activity there which is inimical to our interest does not sort of directly impinge on the situation on the Indo-Myanmar border. While all this is happening, our interaction with the Myanmar army is continuing.
Right.
We have meetings, interaction mechanisms at different levels. So that is an ongoing thing.
Excellent. That's good to know, because that situation is worrying everyone. But I
Yes.
think the army is capable of handling the situation
Yes.
there. In the Northeast, one of the key areas of Army's focus has been for a long time people's cooperation and getting the people on board and keeping them happy, helping them. I just saw one of the treks had gone some to the forward areas
Yes.
from where we are.
Yes.
How are the people looking at the army here in this area?
So you've seen for yourself, we have our forces, troops deployed in far-flung remote areas. So inherently we have that presence or footprint in this thing. So our relationship with the locals, especially in the forward areas, has been extremely good. And this has been over last so many years. They have been contributing to working with us in number of issues, be it infrastructure development projects. We employ them as porters when we require additional working hands for our road construction and habitat
Sure.
construction. We are also training the youth for recruitment in the defense forces, which again has evinced good response. We are training the children to join the Sainik schools, the military schools. A large number of projects we plan to undertake jointly with the state government, especially in Arunachal, where we have come up with a proposal for a border village initiative, where we have identified 3 to 4 villages, which commonly we have plans to develop.
As model villages, I thought. I
So
saw
that is-
one of them actually. Yeah.
Yes, that is in Kibitu sector.
Yes.
That is just about started.
Right.
So these are some of the initiatives that we have taken. You would remember Operational Sadbhavna and Samaritan.
Exactly.
Now that again has had its good impact.
Yes.
So I must say that overall our relationship with the locals has been extremely good. And as a army, we are committed. I keep telling my commanders we need to engage with the locals,
Right.
engage with the state governments. And by virtue of being here, if we can do good for them, we must always
Absolutely.
look in that direction.
So while people have always been friendly, even your cooperation with the state governments is crucial.
Yes.
So there's joint projects that you mentioned about model villages and all that.
Yes.
But in terms of permissions, in terms of clearances, for because now new infrastructure is being built, sometimes common infrastructure will be required, like
Yes.
the airports in Pasighat or
Yes.
other places. How is the relationship between the army and the
That
state
again is
governments?
good. So here, like you mentioned, there are especially for infrastructure creation, road construction, etc. There are issues of forest clearances, land acquisition. So we worked out a sort of empowered committee, so to speak, a mechanism wherein they will look at all these issues, and we try and hasten up these processes because that is very important
Exactly.
before we start actually undertaking.
They used to be hurdles earlier, but I
Yes.
thought what I saw, and this is only anecdotal, but what I saw, the decision-making loop has been sort of speeded up a little bit.
Yes, while I must also admit that we need to do more, but yes, we are moving in that correct direction.
One question that has always come to my mind is that over the last, say, 5 to 10 years, the PLA has been transforming itself,
Yes.
at least announcing the transformation,
Yes.
modernization.
Yes.
How do you assess their progress, and what is it that then India has to do to counter or meet that challenge
Yes.
in terms of the adversity that it may pose?
So, on the Chinese side, when you look at the infrastructure development, we can look at the strategic infrastructure and something which is happening closer to the LSC. In terms of the strategic infrastructure, you are aware of the expressways, new highways, the extension of some of their highways which they're doing, or the recently inaugurated Sichuan Tibet railway line.
Right.
They're developing 3 new airfields and upgrading the existing airfield.
Correct.
So that is the strategic infrastructure
Yes.
development. Closer to the LSC, their road connectivity to the passes is improving, and they also have model villages that you would have
Yes.
heard of, which are coming up.
Some of them are ghost villages, but nevertheless.
Yes, I mean the occupation and the resettlement is something which is, it's still a question mark.
Right.
But so this is something which we are conscious of. But I would say that in a vast country such as Tibet, which involve large distances, so this kind of infrastructure development is not surprising. What we need to take note of is the dual use infrastructure,
Exactly.
which can also
Civil
be,
and military use.
and that is what we have factored in our planning.
Okay.
As far as our side is concerned, I would say in the last 5-6 years, the strategic infrastructure has received special attention. You are aware of the broad gauging of the railway line on the northern bank of Brahmaputra,
Sure.
which some years back there was only a southern
Correct.
railway line on the southern bank. So that is one. We also have 3 strategic railway lines which are in the planning stage, for which the final location survey has been completed. You have the crossings on the Brahmaputra. You visited the Bogibeel Bridge.
Yes.
You visited the Dhola Sadia Bridge.
Right.
So that has been a big boost to infrastructure.
Correct.
And there are plans afoot to have another crossing. Various options are being worked out, whether it should be an underground tunnel or it should be a overground bridge, and likewise. You also visited the ALGs.
Yes.
The 8 ALGs which the Air Force has built. So that is again something which is added value. We are also looking at, and in fact the work has already started, to develop our logistic infrastructure in forward areas.
Exactly.
We are looking at tunneling for storage of ammunition and storage of our other logistic elements. Aviation infrastructure, I mentioned to you about forward aviation bases. So all this is happening in terms of the infrastructure development. Connectivity to forward areas, road connectivity has been a challenge purely because of the nature of terrain
Right.
and the difficulties involved.
Sure.
Now, towards this, I'll just mention 4 to 5 things that we are doing.
Okay.
First is, of course, better synergizing the capabilities of the agencies. Let us say the Border Roads Organization, the NHIDCL, the State PW, and the likewise.
Right.
Each have their core competencies.
Correct.
If we are able to correctly synergize and each other complement each other's effort, so that is something which we are looking at.
Exactly.
We are also looking at the private players coming in and undertaking infrastructure development projects. And to that extent, shifting to the EPC model is already a first step which has been
Right.
taken. Induction of new technology in terms of road construction, the geocell technology, the cementitious base is something which the border roads is now
Correct.
adopted. And fourth is the procedures and our own processes or the systems. So that is something which has been again, streamlined, or shall we say improved, to make this whole process faster.
Exactly.
We talked about the interaction with the state governments and the issues of forest clearance, land acquisition.
Yes.
That is again an important component.
Exactly.
So that is something which we are again
Speed it up.
focusing on. So I would say in terms of infrastructure, so these are some of the things, and the results are already visible, and I'm sure soon whatever infrastructure disparity that we have, I think we'll soon be able to catch up. And
It's good to know because that I can say that this is a very deliberate focus on the eastern
Absolutely,
sector.
yes.
And along the LAC with China,
Yes.
which is a good thing. Even it's better late than never, I would say. But that's something very important to know.
And may I add, it is not only the military that is looking
Right.
at, it is again a whole of nation approach,
Exactly.
wherein for the people who are living close to the LAC,
Right.
I mean, their requirements are
All
similar.
being taken
So,
care of, yes.
assured funding. So
Exactly.
it is drawing the right
Yes.
attention, and the right impetus is being given.
Absolutely.
To this. You would agree that PLA is not the only defense forces which is undergoing transformation or reforms or modernization. For that matter, any defense force would always continuously do that to meet the challenges of future warfare. So as far as the PLA reforms are concerned, you would know they're at three levels. The head level reforms deal with the higher defense management, wherein their departments, etc., have been reorganized, restructured. And then you have the next level, wherein the theater commands have been formed. You have now the combined corps, 13 of them. And then there are the body level reforms, wherein they have gone in for what is called as cabization, combined arms brigades. So these reforms are happening. In terms of additional induction of equipment, again, modernization, etc., is taking place. But you'll agree with me that if you have the resources, you can buy equipment, you can do this, take these steps. It's a different matter to operationalize it, and how quickly you do it is another issue. So while their induction of modern equipment reforms is impressive to look at.
Sure.
But I must highlight a few challenges
Yes.
which go into a reform process. The first and foremost is the change in mindset and culture. From something you have been doing all these years, you need to, if you want
Do
to
something
transition
completely
to different.
different.
So that is a first important aspect. Related to that is the ability to absorb technology. While technology may be available, but how quickly and how smoothly are you able to absorb it in the military is another question. Third is your capability to undertake joint operations. While it looks very nice on this thing, but yes, for the three services and the fourth and the fifth to work together, I feel it's again a major challenge. Then there are issues of human resource management, training, and likewise. So I suppose these are some of the challenges which the PLA would face. But having said all this, even in our defense forces, we are undergoing transformation. We have undertaken certain restructuring, certain reforms, like the rebalancing. that you are
Rebalancing
aware
has
of.
happened, yes.
We are looking at theater commands. I mentioned about the integrated battle groups.
Right.
So we are also looking at various methods to increase operational efficiency, achieve optimization, achieve better value for money. So I suppose it's an ongoing process. So we need not be overly concerned about the reforms that the PLA is undertaking.
I'm glad you say that because from my, again, last 1 week's experience, the induction of technology and use of technology in the Indian military, not just the army, but the Air Force and the Navy, and here I've seen the Air Force and the army, is very encouraging. And I thought the new technology is being absorbed very quickly by our troops.
Yes.
Is that something that I'm right in observing?
I think so. That observation is very correct. So, in any future war, technology is going to be playing a very important role. We are fortunate that outside in the civil industry, our technological capability has enhanced considerably. Now it is for us to make sure as to how best we can get it in the defense technology. And towards this, a number of measures we have taken. You would be aware of how the government and we are encouraging innovation
Right.
in defense technology.
Exactly.
We have initiatives like IDEX or Innovation in Defense
Sure.
thing. You have the Defense Innovation Organization. We have what is called as the Defense India's Security Challenges, where we put out problem statements
Correct.
to the civil industry, to the academia, to the various youth, young, bright minds.
Startups.
Startups. So the startup ecosystem that we have in our country, which has come up very well, we need to leverage that to enhance our defense technological capability. So that is one part. In
Yes.
terms of what actually is happening on ground, I must add that soon we are inducting a number of niche technologies, if you like, right from drones, drone swarms, certain counter-drone technology. In the field of surveillance, we are looking at quadcopters, we are looking at satellite surveillance. In communication, we are looking at how we can leverage the satellites, the software-defined radio. In the field of artificial intelligence, face recognition also, how can all this be put to good use in the military?
Right.
Logistic drones is something which again
Yes.
will add up to our ability to sustain and support troops in forward areas.
Correct.
So in terms of technology infusion, I think it's a important issue and we are fully seized with it and we are doing our best to leverage this, well supported by the government.
Great, General Pandey. It was very comprehensive insight into what Eastern Command is doing, and thank you for your time as well as this, the kind of access that we got into these forward areas, which is rarely accessible because of its difficult terrain. And I think it's wonderful to see the progress that is being made in the forward areas of Arunachal Pradesh, and I'm sure in the other sectors like Sikkim and the other northeastern states. Thank you for your time, and I must again compliment you and your troops and your commanders for the wonderful job that is being done here.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you for taking time off and making a special effort to visit one of the most, shall I say, remote and inhospitable areas. So I'm glad that you were able to make
No,
it.
that was
We're indeed grateful for this.
our privilege and our honor to come here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.